Hello and welcome to my CISSP Review Questions video series. I am Ceolito Rodriguez. My questions will cover the 8 domains of the CISSP with detailed explanations, demos, real-world examples. Again, this is the only place that you need to be if you are really serious about passing the CISSP exam. Question 51. A corporation does not have a formal data destruction policy. During which phase of a criminal legal proceeding will this have the most impact? A, sentencing, B, trial, C, discovery, or D, arraignment? The correct answer here is C, discovery. The discovery phase of a criminal legal proceeding is when both parties exchange evidence and information that may be used during the trial. If a corporation lacks a formal data destruction policy, it may be accused of one, withholding evidence, two, spoliation of evidence, that means destruction of relevant data, and three, failing to comply with an e-discovery laws and obligations, with e-discovery laws and obligation rather. This can result in legal penalties, sanctions, or damage to the company's credibility in court. Question 52. What is considered the best explanation when determining whether to provide remote network access to a third-party security service? A, contract negotiation, B, supply request, C, business need, or D, vendor demonstration? The correct answer here is C, business need. When evaluating whether to grant remote network access to a third-party security service, the best justification must be based on a clearly defined business need. This ensures that 1. Access is necessary to meet business objectives. C. The decision is risk-based and justified. Or C, or rather 3, security controls and oversight are put in place appropriately. So access should never be granted solely due to external requests or informal arrangements. Question 53. The acquisition of personal data being obtained by a lawful and fair means is an example of what principle? A, collection limitation principle, B, openness principle, C, purpose specification principle, or D, data quality principle. The correct answer is A, collection limitation principle. The collection limitation principle is part of the OECD Fair Information Practices or FIPS and requires that personal data be collected by lawful and fair means and, where appropriate, with the knowledge or consent of the data subject. It limits the amount and manner in which personal data is collected. This principle helps ensure 1. The data collection is justified and minimal. 2. Individuals are informed. And 3. Consent is respected. These principles are also applied in the GDPR. Question 54. Which of the following is the most appropriate control for asset data labeling procedures? A, categorizing the types of media being used. B, logging data media to provide a physical inventory control. C, reviewing off-site storage access control. Or D, reviewing audit trails of logging records. The correct answer here is A, categorizing the types of media being used. Asset data labeling procedures involves assigning classification labels, for example, public, confidential, secret, etc., to data or media based on security and usage. The most appropriate control to support this process is to first categorize the types of media being used so the correct classification and handling procedures can be applied accordingly. Proper labeling starts with understanding what kind of asset you are dealing with, whether it's a USB drive, backup taped, printed documents, etc. Question 45. What is the best approach to anonymizing personally identifiable information or PII in a test environment? A. Swapping data. B. Randomizing data. C. Encoding the data or encrypting data. Option D. The correct answer is B. Randomizing data. Randomizing data is the best approach to anonymizing personally identifiable information or PII in a test environment because it breaks the direct link between the individual and the data. Randomization rather replaces real data with fake but realistic looking values, making it impossible to re-identify the person. This helps one, protect privacy, two, comply with data protection regulations like GDPR, and three, safely test applications without using live PII. Question 56. Which of the following departments initiates the request, approval, and provisioning business process? A. Operations. B. Security. C. Human resources. Or D. Information technology. The correct answer is C, human resources. Human resources, or HR, typically initiates the request, approval, and provisioning business process when an employee is hired, transferred, or terminated. HR notifies the appropriate departments to one, provision accounts, assign roles and permissions, and three, ensure proper onboarding or offboarding. This ensures that access controls and identity management processes start based on a verified business event, which in this case is the employment status. Question 57. An organization is setting a security assessment scope with the goal of developing a security management program or SMP. The next step is to select an approach for conducting the risk assessment. Which of the following approaches is most effective for the SMP? A. Security control driven assessment that focuses on controls management. B. Business processes based risk assessment with a focus on business goals. C. Asset driven risk assessment with a focus on the assets. Or D. Data driven risk assessment with a focus on data. The correct answer here is B. Business process based risk assessment with a focus on business goals. When developing a security management program or SMP, the most effective risk assessment approach is one that align security with the organization's strategic business objectives. A business process-based risk assessment ensures that one, security priorities support core business functions. Two, risk is evaluated in the context of rather impact to the business. And three, controls and mitigations are justified by business value. This ensures a risk-based, goal-oriented security program, which is essential for long-term success and stakeholder buy-in. Question 58. Which technique helps system designers consider potential security concerns of their system and applications? A. Threat modeling. B. Manual inspections and reviews. C. Source code review. Or D. Penetration testing. The correct answer here is A. Threat modeling. Threat modeling is a proactive security technique that helps system designers and architects identify, understand, and mitigate potential security threats during the design phase of a system or application. It helps answer one, what are we building? Two, what can go wrong? And three, what are we doing to mitigate the risks? By thinking like an attacker early on, teams can embed security into the design, reducing costly fixes later in the development. One of those popular threat modeling model or threat models, it's a Stride, which is used by Microsoft. So Stride is, again, one of the most popular threat modeling frameworks. It helps identify threats based on categories. For example, the Stride stands for spoofing, uh, basically looking for impersonating something or someone else. Spoofing is for impersonating. Tampering, unauthorized modification of data. Repudiation, denial of an action, no accountability. Information disclosure, data leaks or unauthorized access. Denial of service, D, which basically making a system unreliable. And E is the evaluation of privilege, rather elevation of privilege, gaining higher access than authorized. So designing a web app login system, for example, a Stride helps ensure that you implement authentication, input validation, and login, among others. Another common model is PASTA, the process for attack simulation and threat analysis. PASTA is a risk-centric threat modeling approach with 7 stages, focusing on aligning security with business objectives. Stages include one, define business objectives; two, define technical scope; three, decompose the application; four, analyze threats; five, vulnerability analysis; six, attack modeling; and seven, risk and impact analysis. PASTA is great for complex enterprise applications with regulatory or business-driven risk concerns. Question 59. A security professional can best mitigate the risk of using a commercial off-the-shelf or COTS solution by deploying the application with which of the following controls in place? A. Network segmentation. B. Blacklisting application. C. Whitelisting application. Or D. Hardened configuration. The correct answer here is D. Hardened configuration. When deploying a commercial off-shelf or COTS solution, you can't change its internal code. So the best way to reduce risk is by applying a hardened configuration. This includes disabling unused features, changing default settings and credentials, applying security patches, and enforcing strict access controls. These measures help minimize vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Here is a screenshot of the Microsoft Defender portal. So we're talking about off-the-shelf software. Where software as a service or SaaS in the cloud, it's similar to that. So you subscribe, let's say, to Microsoft Email, Exchange Online, and you assume that, well, I have email by Microsoft. Microsoft is in charge of Exchange. A lot of companies assume that, well, we don't have to do anything. We just basically send and receive email and everything is all set. Well, that's not the case. There are a lot of configurations that uh, that come into place. So again, I am in the Defender, Microsoft Defender portal. There is a component which is about email and collaboration, which is part of what is called MDO or Microsoft Defender for Office 365. And if you go into this piece uh, in under policies and rules, so you're gonna go to policies and rules, you're gonna go to threat policies, and then what is called preset security policy. I'm only gonna talk about uh, something very simple, but there are tons of stuff that you can configure if you really want a secure email system. And obviously you do, because about 95% of all attacks start with an email address, right? So Microsoft have this what is called preset security policies, and these are the built-in protection. So a lot of the companies, when they have Microsoft for Exchange, obviously the level of protection that you get from Microsoft depends on your license. Microsoft have different levels of licensing depending on the features and what you're paying for. So if you look at the built-in protection, you have additional machine learning models, more aggressive demonstration, etc. But notice that here, besides this, we get this, right? So if you turn on this standard configuration, you also get attachments and link protection with save links and save attachments. So most of the attacks uh, that comes from email come as a form of either an attachment with malware, right, or a link where the cyber criminal intends to send you to another page on the internet to for credential harvesting, right, to steal your credentials. So if you don't configure now, first of all, you need to have uh, the basic, some of the Microsoft credentials do not come with advanced uh, save attachments and save links protection. So you need to have either an E5 or an E3 and then add these components. And basically what the standard protection does, it's a little bit more aggressive and it also enables that, right? And then if you want to really be aggressive, then you do the strict. Now, you gotta be careful um, because you may lose legitimate email if you're too strict, right? They may go into quarantine and production, there may be trouble over there. So this is a balance that you have to strike, and almost everything in cybersecurity is you need to strike a balance between usability, production, and cybersecurity. Yes, you want to protect your environment, but the whole goal of a company is to do business. If your security controls are so strict that the businesses stop functioning, then cybersecurity is not doing its job. But in the same token, if the security controls are so relaxed that you are being attacked constantly and a lot of cybersecurity incidents are happening, then again, you're not doing your job either. So you need to strike this balance. And that's what the standard configuration does. But anyways, but my point is that when you buy SaaS, software as a service, or you um, install, if you buy off the shelf software, right? If you buy software from, basically what that means is that it's not software that you are producing in-house, right? And most companies do not produce software in-house. They would buy some sort of a SaaS package in the cloud or some sort of software from another company. When you install that company, uh, that software, there's a lot of configuration that have to be done to that software. That's the bottom line. So many cybersecurity incidents occur, especially when you have stuff in the cloud, because the software, it's not that the software is not secured. Most of the time, the problem is that the software has not been configured properly, either because you don't have the IT cybersecurity personnel that can do that, or in many cases, you do have the IT personnel, but they lack the training necessary. They don't master the program, and then they don't configure it, the way that it should be configured. But anyway, so very important that if you have any package, any software, that you follow best practice and that you configure that software appropriately based on the company's policies and procedures. Question 60, and the last question of this section. Which of the following best describes centralized identity management? A, service providers perform as both the credential and identity provider, or IDP. B, service providers identify an entity by behavior analysis versus an identification factor. C, service providers agree to integrate identity system recognition across organizational boundaries. Or D, service providers rely on a trusted third party, or TTP, to provide requesters with both credentials and identifiers. The correct answer here is D. Service providers rely on a trusted third party, or TTP, to provide requesters with both credentials and identifiers. Centralized identity management refers to a model where a single trusted identity provider, often a third party, manages authentication and identification for multiple services. This streamlines user access, improves security, and simplifies administration by centralizing user credentials and attributes. In this model, service providers trust a central authority such as Azure AD, Okta, or Active Directory Federation Services to validate identity and issued credentials. The typical employee in medium to big companies have from 15 to 20 different applications and services that they need to log in, and this is really difficult. So most companies use SSO, single sign-on, to consolidate all these credentials into a few strong authentication methods using MFA and other techniques to make sure that there's not so many username and passwords that the employees need to remember. And this is where the using a consolidated identity provider, it's really important. One example is the use of, for example, Microsoft Entra. So in Microsoft Entra, which is used to be called Azure AD, so you got tons of application that you need to have access to, right? Um, and the employees would need to remember credential for all this application. Well, you could use an identity provider like Microsoft Entra or Okta, for example. Okta is a very popular one as well. And basically, using uh, you can register all of this application with Microsoft. And if a company uses, for example, Salesforce, or let's say Box, that it's over here to store files. So when they click on Box, they are redirected to Microsoft Entra, and then they can sign in with the regular Microsoft Entra ID and password. Obviously, there's some configuration that has to be done using either OpenID or SAML token. There's configuration that have to be done on both Microsoft side and on the company that provides the application, in this case, Box. So when a user sign in to Box, so they try to access Box, they will go to Microsoft uh, Entra, and then Microsoft Entra redirect that to the application and so forth. You could also register this application in the My Apps website on Microsoft, and then that way you can have people go to a central location to access all their apps. This is what they were talking about in the previous question when we're talking about centralizing the access management, the identity and access management, so that you don't have to remember so many credentials, and that everything is managed by this central company, which in this case is Microsoft Entra, but another popular one, as I mentioned, it's Okta. This is the end of this session. Next session is coming soon. Thank you for watching, and again, if you find this content useful, please subscribe to my channel. That would help me a lot, and I would appreciate that. Thank you.